And we begin with our Lauren Leamanczyk at federal court. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Catherine. Yeah, this morning that indictment was handed down, 131 counts that range from second-degree murder to conspiracy to defraud the government. But what it all comes down to, according to the U.S. attorney, is the fact that these leaders of NECC, the New England Compounding Center, showed a complete and utter disregard for human life. Those were their words, an appalling indifference to human life. We do have video this morning of the owners of that compounding pharmacy being arrested. Federal agents arrived at the homes of Barry Cadden and Greg Canigliaro earlier this morning. They are among the 14 people arrested and indicted. Now, Cadden actually could face life in prison because he was one of the leaders, he was one of the people in charge of this pharmacy. And what's alleged here is that the pharmacists knew that the drugs were made in contaminated labs. They even instructed technicians to falsify cleaning logs. They knew the drugs that should not have been sold, that they were contaminated, that they could be extremely dangerous, and yet they shipped those drugs all over the country. In all, 64 people died, 751 people were sickened. Those people lived in 26 states, including New Hampshire. Now, there were no victims from Massachusetts clinics. However, that company was located in Framingham, Massachusetts. It has since shut down. U.S. Attorney Carmen Ortiz did talk today about why these criminal charges are so far-reaching.
The cleaning and disinfecting practices in the so-called clean rooms at NECC, where the drugs were compounded, failed to comply with the most basic health standards. The indictment alleges that the most senior pharmacists, as well as pharmacists working in these rooms, had this knowledge.
And not only did they have knowledge of contaminated drugs, the U.S. attorney says, they also purposely falsified the prescription names. Some of the prescriptions had names like Mickey Mouse or Baby Jesus instead of being prescribed to specific patients. And that was one of the ways, they say, NECC was able to defraud the federal government and get around becoming a manufacturer and then having these sort of federal regulations and inspections. Now, there are a number of victims all over the country who are suing New England Compounding Center. I spoke to a lawyer who represents several of them, and she said that these arrests will come as a relief to her patients who continue to suffer.
I think they're really relieved. They've been waiting for this for a long time. I've had clients who've even died as recently as just 2 weeks ago, who just suffered and never got to see this day. So the clients now that have been able to see what's going on and that this is moving forward, I think it's a relief to them to know that their suffering and their loss and the deaths of some of the family members is not going to be meaningless, and that people are really going to be held accountable for all their wrongful acts.
And it took 2 years for these arrests to happen. There has already been a settlement in federal court, a monetary settlement of $134 million, which will be distributed to victims. But I've talked to victims this morning who told me that the fact that these people are now being held criminally accountable was important to them. Many people are suffering, have had extreme financial distress because of this, as well as physical distress. And for a lot of these victims, at least the ones I've spoken to, they say that it was important for them to see these owners and these managers of New England Compounding Center criminally charged. It's a long indictment, a lot of disturbing details, and we will be going through that and have more for you later on at 5 and 6. Live at the federal courthouse, I'm Lauren Leamanczyk, WBZ News.